All right, I'm about to hang my quilts here at Gallery 224 in Port Washington, Wisconsin. And we've been doing a little bit of fiddly work, measuring things, seeing where we want the quilts to be, holding them up on the wall with the 4-inch sleeve and the wood in there. And now I'm going to take this wood out of the sleeve that I made so that I can figure out where I want my nails to be on the wall. I've already drawn from a previous show the midline on my piece of wood. So I'm gonna match that up with where we predetermined we want the quilt to hang, and I'm remembering that the quilt goes a little bit above where the wood is. And I'm gonna grab my level. And I like this system in part because it's so easy for me to hang by myself. And even though I have help, I've got a lovely camera person and I don't need help to hang. So here, once my level is set, I'm just going to use my pen to draw a little dot here where I want my nails to be. That went through just about fine. So now I got my hammer out, and I don't have to be holding the wood in order to hammer my nails in. So I'll do them at a slight angle. And I don't want the wood to stick, the nail to stick out. I don't want it to stick out further than the wood and hit the quilt. So I think that's in deep enough. Now you can come zoom in and take a look at me putting the wood in. I buy this molding for the floor, so the hardware store thinks it's for this use, but I like the tapered edge on here. I like the way that that drops and allows the quilt to hang and float real nice. My sleeve, I form in a way that's a little bit unique in the quilt world. So it has to be a 4-inch sleeve because that's what you need for all the quilt shows. But generally, I've seen a lot of people do their sleeve as one long piece of fabric that goes all the way across, which is fine for quilt shows when you're applying to QuiltCon and other places because they put a pole through it and it just hangs. But if you want to also exhibit on the wall or in a gallery or a space like this, I want it to look like it's floating. I don't want to have a lot of hardware on the side of the quilt. So I've got these holes here where the nails can go through when I hang the quilt. I always, no matter what size the quilt is, and you guys know that my quilts are not like super geometrically square. So I always make this mid panel the same size so that I can always use the same pieces of wood interchangeably because the holes are always in the exact same spot. So it's a little practical thing because I'm always hanging my work. But now I'm gonna lift this up and I've got my fingers on top of these holes that I drilled. And I'm gonna just feel for my nails, pop my quilt on, smooth it off.
Wow.
And it's so easy. So here it's lined up perfectly with my Post-it that I used. And just a little fluffing and we're all set. So now I'm gonna do the other quilt. So I'm glad you could see how beautiful it is from outside. We figured out where we want to hang this quilt. And again, I'm gonna this time use a ladder because we want a nice high vantage point. I've already got my Post-it letting me know where I want the top of the quilt to be. Got my pen in hand. And my level. So here again, I'm just remembering where I want the wood to be compared to the top of the quilt. quilt because that's a different spot. And I'm making that level. And it really is important to have a level. I was feeling like it wasn't even, but I'm gonna trust the level. I'm getting my nice little pen mark through the wood. And now I'm gonna hammer my nails in. I don't need the wood to do that. You can come close if you want and see when I get to that nail. It's slightly angled up. Ooh. Good strong wall right there. So when I lay my quilts down, especially when I'm on site, I like to lay them so the back of the quilt is against the floor, just to make sure I don't pick up any dust or get them dirty. When I slide things in, I've learned the hard way that, especially if anyone else is going to eventually be hanging the quilt, that I've got to sew down the sides of my sleeves as well as the long parts. You don't have to do that from a practical point of view, but sometimes other people, when they hang them, they don't know, and they'll slide the wood between both layers of the sleeve and the quilt itself, which we don't want. Come a little closer. Let me show you just a little bit of how this sleeve works. When I make the sleeve, I iron it flat, and then I use a hair marker and I find 4 inches from one edge and I mark across it, and then I fold up and I iron where that mark is. So it gives me about an extra ½ inch of fabric on this exterior part. So it's not a flat piece of fabric. It's a 3D piece of fabric that has some space for the wood, and that helps it lay a little flatter as well. Up we go. And we spent a lot of time looking at this from through the window and at different angles to make sure that we liked this height. We kept realizing it needed to be taller and taller. So again, I'm just smoothing out up here. And let me move the ladder so you get the full effect. And this is the beautiful entry front room of the gallery.
Beautiful.
I'm going to show you 2 more quilts getting hung in a minute. So now I've got these 2 soft, small scale maps that we're going to hang. We've spent a lot of time deciding on the height and how to center them and which one's going to go on top. So this is walk number 2, and we decided based on the titles, this one will be on top. So here I've put my Post-it where it's pointing like a little arrow to the exact spot that's even on the wall and at the height we want the top of the quilt to be. This quilt is, the top is not parallel to the design. So here I've got to hold it in a way, because that doesn't look right, as you can see, if it is a perfectly parallel top. So I want to hold that so that this spot, the geometry of the map itself, is looking right. From here, I'm going to use my level just to help me hold everything flat. So I've got the quilt exactly where I want it to be. And that level's gonna keep it flat and even. And I'm gonna find the place where I want my nail to be. And I'm making a really tiny mark here because this is a little more visible. It's not gonna be hidden by the quilt. But those tiny, oh, my poor Post-it. I'll have to show you how we figured that out again. Those tiny marks, though, are going to tell me where I want my nails to be. Okay, and I got them pretty close to the wall. I don't want them sticking out a whole lot. And now I'll just slide this loop that I made. Look how cute that is, the way it crisscrosses in the back. It's a lot of ladder stitch to attach it. And there we go. Nice with my Post-it. So here we've measured the wall to find center, and I have memorized that 26.5 is the midline that we wanted to use. Also, this bottom quilt, walk number 3, is about 3/4 of an inch larger than the other quilt. So that also felt like a good reason to have it downstairs. And here I want to, oh yeah, I didn't do that before, did I? Well, I can fold the quilt in half to figure out where is exactly halfway on it. Match that up, and also just check with how I oriented everything. One last look. I think I'm going to put it a little lower. That looks more like what we decided we liked. And again, this level is just going to help hold everything flat so that I have enough hands all by myself to make my little pen mark. You don't go through nails very fast as an artist. Forget where I inherited these. I think from the first duplex I ever rented. We're in the basement. This walk on the top is just my favorite walk that I pretty accurately mapped with my Fitbit. And then this bottom map is a map from my memory. So I didn't print anything on the computer. I didn't trace anything. I wanted to be a little more free and easy with how I drew everything in. There we go. Both are hung here in the gallery. We also, part of how we decided this initial height was that we wanted it to be about the same height as this other quilt. So you round the corner and the tops are both the same. So another little insider trick here at Gallery 224. All right, thank you everyone.